In the cold void of space, the Earth Defense Command received an alert that would shake the very foundations of their existence. A massive fleet of alien ships, sleek and bristling with advanced weaponry, had just entered the solar system. These were the Arduans, a race known across the galaxy for their technological superiority and ruthless conquests. Their mission was clear: subjugate Earth and bring humanity to its knees. Commander Sarah Vance, a seasoned officer with a reputation for her strategic brilliance, stood on the bridge of the UES Valor, the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. The situation was dire. Earth's modern fleet, though formidable, was no match for the overwhelming power of the Arduans. Reports from reconnaissance drones painted a grim picture. The alien ships were equipped with energy shields and weapons far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. As the Earth fleet prepared for what seemed to be a hopeless battle, an unexpected signal was detected. It was ancient, a signal that had not been heard in over 1,000 years. The coordinates led to a distant part of the solar system, to a forgotten, derelict fleet lost to history. This was the ancient fleet, a relic from a bygone era, when humanity had once ruled the stars before being driven back to Earth by an unknown force. Without hesitation, Commander Vance ordered her fleet to investigate. What they found was beyond belief. Massive battleships, carriers, and dreadnoughts, preserved in perfect condition, as if waiting for this very moment. The fleet was equipped with weapons that had long been considered obsolete, yet there was something about their design, a simplicity and raw power, that could prove to be the key to Earth's survival. The awakening of the ancient fleet sent ripples through the Arduan ranks. The Arduan commander, Lord Sarek, sneered as he observed the human relics. He considered them primitive and no match for his advanced warships. With a flick of his wrist, he ordered his fleet to prepare for an easy victory. But the humans had a plan. Commander Vance knew that the Arduans' arrogance would be their downfall. The ancient fleet's technology, though old, had been built during a time when humanity had faced far greater threats than the Arduans. Vance ordered the activation of the fleet's systems, and one by one, the massive ships came to life, their engines roaring as they shook off the dust of centuries. As the Arduan fleet closed in, the first volley of plasma torpedoes was launched from the ancient fleet. The impact was devastating, catching the Arduans off guard. Their shields, designed to repel modern energy weapons, crumbled under the barrage of kinetic projectiles. The battle had begun, and it was clear that the humans were not as weak as the Arduans had believed. The skies above Earth lit up as the two fleets clashed. The Valor led the charge, flanked by the ancient dreadnoughts. Vance's strategy was simple: use the sheer brute force of the ancient fleet to break through the Arduan lines, while the modern ships provided support and covered the flanks. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. For a moment, it seemed as though humanity might prevail. The Arduan ships, though superior in technology, were not prepared for the raw power and resilience of the ancient fleet. But then, a massive ship emerged from the Arduan ranks, a dreadnought of colossal proportions, bristling with weapons that could tear through entire planets. This was the Arduan flagship, the Imperator. The Imperator opened fire, and in an instant, several human ships were reduced to glowing debris. The tide of battle began to turn once more, with the Arduan forces rallying behind their flagship. Commander Vance realized that the Imperator was the key to the battle. If it could be destroyed, the Arduans would lose their will to fight. But how could they destroy such a monstrous vessel? The answer lay in the ancient fleet's last secret, a weapon of unimaginable power, something that had been deemed too dangerous to use even in the darkest days of humanity's past. Vance had no choice. It was time to unleash the fury of the past and secure humanity's future. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. The humans, once considered weak and inferior, now stood as a testament to resilience, their ancient fleet a symbol of their enduring spirit. But would it be enough to turn the tide against the unstoppable force of the Arduans? Only time would tell. The battle raged on, with the Arduan flagship, the Imperator, tearing through the human fleet. Explosions illuminated the void as ship after ship was obliterated by the immense power of the Arduan dreadnought. The UEA's Valor, now battered and bruised, led the remnants of the human defense in a desperate attempt to hold the line. Commander Sarah Vance knew time was running out. The valor of her fleet, both the modern and the ancient, was unmatched, but it wasn't enough. The Imperator's overwhelming firepower was slowly grinding them down. She needed a miracle, and as she stared at the holographic display of the battlefield, she knew where that miracle lay. "Commander, we've just decrypted the last of the ancient fleet's data logs," Lieutenant Ortiz, her chief engineer, reported. "There's something here, a weapon, codenamed Omega. It was never deployed. The logs say it was too powerful, even by their standards." Vance's eyes narrowed. This was it, the weapon that had been hidden away, locked in the deepest vaults of the ancient fleet's databanks. If the Omega weapon was as powerful as the logs suggested, it could be their last chance to turn the tide. But there was a reason it had never been used. It was a gamble, one that could either save Earth or destroy it. "Where is it?" Vance asked, her voice steadied despite the chaos around her. "It's on the dreadnought Solaris," Ortiz replied. "It's located in the rear section of the ship, heavily fortified. But there's a catch. The weapon requires manual activation. Someone has to go on board and engage it directly." Vance didn't hesitate. "Prepare a shuttle. I'm going to the Solaris." "Commander, you can't be serious," Lieutenant Ortiz exclaimed. "We need you here. If you leave, who's going to lead the fleet?" Vance turned to him, her expression resolute. "This isn't a choice, Lieutenant. The Omega weapon is our only hope, and I trust my officers to hold the line until I return. This is the only way." Within minutes, Vance was in a shuttle, racing towards the Solaris, the largest and most heavily armed ship in the ancient fleet. The dreadnought had seen countless battles in its time, and now it was about to face its greatest test. As the shuttle approached, the scale of the ship became apparent. It was a behemoth, dwarfing even the largest Arduan vessels. The shuttle docked, and Vance quickly made her way to the rear section of the ship, where the Omega weapon was housed. The corridors of the Solaris were eerily silent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Vance could feel the weight of history pressing down on her as she moved through the ancient vessel, knowing that this ship had once been humanity's greatest weapon. Finally, she reached the control room. The Omega weapon's activation panel was massive, covered in symbols and controls that seemed almost alien in their complexity. Vance hesitated for just a moment, thinking of the stories she had heard about weapons of this magnitude. Stories of entire star systems being erased in a single flash of light. But there was no other option. Taking a deep breath, Vance began the activation sequence. The ship rumbled as the weapon powered up, systems that had been dormant for centuries roaring to life. A deep hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Vance's hands moved swiftly across the controls, guided by the data logs that had been decrypted. Outside, the battle continued to escalate. The Arduan forces had noticed the activity on the Solaris and were now concentrating their fire on the dreadnought. The Valor and the rest of the human fleet did their best to cover the ship, but the Imperator's guns were relentless, tearing through their ranks with brutal efficiency. On board the Solaris, Vance completed the final steps of the activation sequence. A screen flickered to life, displaying a countdown timer. 10 minutes until the Omega weapon was fully charged. But there was one final piece of the puzzle. The weapon needed a target. "Lieutenant Ortiz, patch me through to the fleet," Vance ordered, her voice echoing through the ship. "Commander, we've got you." Ortiz's voice crackled through the comms. "What do you need?" "I need targeting data on the Imperator, and I need it now." There was a brief pause as Ortiz relayed the order. Vance's heart pounded in her chest as the seconds ticked away. The fate of Earth hinged on this moment, on whether or not she could lock onto the Imperator before the weapon was fully charged. "Got it," Ortiz shouted. I'm sending the data now. The targeting system locked onto the Imperator, a red reticle highlighting the massive Arduin dreadnought on the screen. Vance's finger hovered over the final control, the button that would fire the Omega weapon. She hesitated, knowing that once she pressed it, there was no turning back. But there was no other way. The Imperator had to be destroyed. With a determined look, Vance pressed the button. The ship shuddered as the Omega weapon unleashed its full power. A blinding beam of energy shot forth from the Solaris, tearing through space with a force that defied comprehension. The beam struck the Imperator, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a cataclysmic explosion, the Imperator disintegrated. The shockwave rippled through space, sending the remaining Arduin ships into disarray. The battle was over. The ancient fleet, with its ancient weaponry, had done what no one thought possible. It had saved Earth. As the light faded and the silence returned, Commander Vance collapsed into her seat, exhausted but triumphant. The Omega weapon had worked, but at a cost. The Solaris was badly damaged, its systems barely holding together. Yet the gamble had paid off. The Arduin fleet was retreating, their morale shattered. Earth was safe for now. But Vance knew that this victory would not be the end. There would be more battles to come, more enemies to face. But for the moment, humanity could breathe a little easier, knowing that they had once again proven their resilience, their determination, and their strength. The battlefield was quiet now, the remnants of the Arduin fleet retreating into the darkness of space. The destruction of the Imperator had broken their spirit, and the once mighty armada was in full retreat. The silence that followed was almost deafening after the chaos of battle, a stark reminder of the cost of victory. Commander Sarah Vance sat in the control room of the Solaris, her body aching from the strain of the battle and the tension of wielding the Omega weapon. The ancient dreadnought around her was damaged, its once imposing form now scared and battered from the immense energy it had unleashed. The weapon had saved Earth, but the Solaris had paid the price. "Commander, we're receiving communications from Earth." Lieutenant Ortiz's voice crackled through the comms. "They're hailing the fleet." Vance nodded, steadying herself as she stood up and made her way to the main communications console. She activated the link, and the face of Admiral Jensen, the head of Earth's Defense Command, appeared on the screen. His expression was a mix of relief and pride. "Commander Vance, you did it," Jensen said, his voice filled with emotion. "The Arduin fleet is retreating. Earth is safe, thanks to you and the ancient fleet." Vance nodded, her expression serious. "It wasn't just me, Admiral. It was the entire fleet, both old and new. We all fought together, and we all made sacrifices. The Omega weapon, it worked, but the Solaris is heavily damaged. We won't be able to use it again without extensive repairs." Jensen's face softened. "You did what you had to, Commander. The Solaris may be damaged, but it's still standing. And more importantly, Earth is still standing. We can rebuild the fleet, and we can rebuild the Solaris. But right now, you and your crew need to come home. You've earned it." Vance allowed herself a small smile. "Understood, Admiral. We'll begin recovery operations immediately." The link ended, and Vance turned her attention back to the fleet. The surviving ships were already beginning to regroup, with rescue and repair crews moving to assist the damaged vessels. The battle had been won, but the aftermath would be a long and arduous process. As the recovery operations began, Vance couldn't help but think about the implications of what had just happened. The Omega weapon was a terrifying power, one that could easily have destroyed more than just the Arduin fleet. It was a reminder of the dangers that lay in the depths of space and of the ancient civilizations that had come before them. Yet, despite the power of the Omega weapon, it was humanity's resilience and determination that had truly won the day. The ancient fleet had been a powerful tool, but it was the unity of the human forces, the courage of the soldiers and the wisdom of their leaders that had turned the tide. Humanity had faced annihilation, and had emerged stronger than ever. Weeks passed as the fleet made its way back to Earth. The journey was slow, with many of the ships needing extensive repairs. The Solaris was towed back to the Sol system, its once majestic form now a symbol of both victory and the heavy toll of war. The shipyards on Mars and Luna were already preparing to begin the massive undertaking of repairing and restoring the ancient fleet, while Earth celebrated its survival. Upon returning to Earth, Vance and her crew were met with a hero's welcome. Crowds cheered as the battered ships entered orbit, and the story of the battle quickly spread across the planet. The Solaris became a symbol of hope and strength, a reminder that humanity was not alone in the galaxy and that they had the power to defend themselves. Admiral Jensen personally commended Vance and her crew, awarding them the highest honors for their bravery and leadership. But even as the celebrations continued, the leaders of Earth knew that they could not rest on their laurels. The Arduans had been defeated, but they were not the only threat in the galaxy. The discovery of the ancient fleet had opened up new possibilities, but it also meant that humanity was now a player in a much larger game. The victory had also raised questions about the future. The power of the Omega weapon was a double-edged sword. Could humanity be trusted with such power? Would they need to use it again? And what other secrets were hidden within the ancient fleet's databanks? These were questions that Vance and her fellow leaders would need to grapple with as they looked to the future. As the rebuilding efforts continued, Vance found herself reflecting on the events of the battle and what it meant for the future of humanity. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless mysteries still to be uncovered. The ancient fleet had been a gift, a remnant of a civilization long gone, but it was also a reminder that even the greatest powers could fall. Humanity had survived this battle, but they would need to remain vigilant, united, and ready for whatever came next. The Solaris, now docked in Earth's orbit, stood as a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. It would take time, but the ship would be restored, and with it, humanity's resolve to defend their home and explore the stars. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. Humanity had proven their strength, and now, with the ancient fleet by their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stars glittered like diamonds against the backdrop of the infinite void, a vast canvas that stretched beyond comprehension. In the heart of this expanse, humanity stood at a crossroads. The battle against the Arduan fleet had been won, but the galaxy was far from peaceful. The future held both promise and peril, and it was up to humanity to navigate this uncertain path. Commander Sarah Vance watched from the observation deck of the Solaris, now undergoing extensive repairs in Earth's orbit. The once battered dreadnought was being restored to its former glory, but the scars of battle remained, both on the ship and in the hearts of those who had fought. The victory had come at a high cost, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Vance's shoulders. "Commander," a voice called out from behind her. It was Lieutenant Ortiz, his expression one of quiet determination. "Admiral Jensen has requested your presence at the briefing. The Council is meeting to discuss the future of the fleet." Vance nodded, tearing her gaze away from the stars. "Thank you, Lieutenant. I'll be there shortly." As she made her way to the briefing room, Vance's thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions. The discovery of the ancient fleet had changed everything. Humanity was no longer a small, isolated species on the edge of the galaxy. They had become a force to be reckoned with, a player in a game that spanned the cosmos. But with that power came new challenges. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with rival civilizations, ancient threats, and unknown mysteries. The victory over the Arduans had shown that humanity could hold its own, but it had also revealed the fragility of their position. The ancient fleet was a powerful asset, but it was not invincible. The question now was how to use this newfound power responsibly and wisely. The briefing room was filled with the leaders of Earth's Defense Command, as well as representatives from the United Earth government and other key figures. Admiral Jensen stood at the head of the table, his stern expression softening slightly as Vance entered the room. "Commander Vance, thank you for joining us," Jensen said, motioning for her to take a seat. "We've been discussing the implications of our victory and the future of our fleet." Vance took her seat, glancing around the room at the assembled leaders. The atmosphere was tense, but there was also a sense of purpose. Everyone knew that the decisions made here would shape the course of humanity's future in the galaxy. "The battle against the Arduans has shown us that we are capable of defending ourselves," Jensen continued. "But it has also revealed the scale of the threats we may face. The ancient fleet has given us a powerful tool, but it is not enough to rely solely on the technology of the past. We must continue to innovate, to build on what we've learned, and to prepare for the challenges ahead." One of the representatives, a stern-looking woman with sharp features, spoke up. "The Omega weapon was a success, but it is also a risk. We must consider the ethical implications of wielding such power. If we are to use the ancient fleet's technology, we must do so with caution and responsibility." Vance nodded in agreement. "The Omega weapon is a last resort, not something we can use lightly. But it's not just about the weapon. The ancient fleet's databanks are filled with knowledge that we've only begun to explore. We need to study it, learn from it, and use that knowledge to strengthen our own capabilities." Another voice chimed in, this time from a younger officer. "And what about the Arduans? They've retreated, but they're not defeated. They'll be back, and they'll be looking for revenge. We need to be ready for them, and for any other threats that might emerge." Jensen leaned forward, his gaze intense. "That's why we're here. We need to make decisions about how we're going to move forward. Do we expand the fleet? Do we focus on diplomacy with other civilizations? Do we prioritize exploration or defense? These are the questions we need to answer." The room fell silent as the weight of the decision sank in. The future was uncertain, and the stakes were high. But Vance knew one thing for certain. Humanity could not afford to be complacent. The battle against the Arduans was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless challenges and opportunities waiting to be discovered. As the discussion continued, Vance felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ancient fleet had given humanity a fighting chance, but it was up to them to seize that opportunity and shape their own destiny. The road ahead would be difficult, but with courage, wisdom, and unity, humanity could forge a new path in the galaxy. Months passed, and Earth entered a period of rapid transformation. The ancient fleet was fully integrated into the United Earth Defense Force, with the Solaris leading the charge. The knowledge gleaned from the fleet's databanks spurred a new era of technological advancement, with innovations in energy, propulsion, and weaponry that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. Diplomatic efforts were also expanded, with humanity reaching out to other civilizations across the galaxy. The goal was not only to establish alliances, but to prevent future conflicts through understanding and cooperation. The Arduans, though defeated, were not forgotten. Peaceful overtures were made, but preparations for a possible return were always in the background. Exploration became a priority as well. The galaxy was full of mysteries, and humanity was determined to uncover them. New star systems were charted, and expeditions were sent to distant worlds, some using the advanced technology of the ancient fleet to travel farther and faster than ever before. The discovery of ancient ruins, long-abandoned outposts, and strange new life forms hinted at the galaxy's rich and complex history. Commander Sarah Vance, now an admiral, continued to play a crucial role in shaping this new era. She led the charge in the defense of Earth and the exploration of the galaxy, her experiences in the battle against the Arduans serving as a constant reminder of the importance of vigilance and preparedness. But for all the progress that was made, the future remained uncertain. The galaxy was a vast and unpredictable place, full of wonders and dangers alike. Yet humanity faced it with newfound confidence. They had proven their strength, their resilience, and their determination. With the ancient fleet at their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the Solaris once again sailed through the stars, now fully restored and more powerful than ever, Vance looked out at the endless expanse before them. The journey was far from over, but humanity was ready. The galaxy was vast, but they were no longer alone. Together, they would forge a new dawn, a new era in the history of the galaxy, one where humanity's strength, wisdom, and unity would light the way forward. The stars beckoned, and humanity answered the call. The galaxy had settled into a fragile peace. Humanity's rise as a formidable force had reshaped interstellar politics, and the ancient fleet had become both a symbol of hope and a deterrent against aggression. But even as humanity reached out to the stars, pushing the boundaries of exploration and technology, there were whispers of something darker lurking in the depths of space, something far older and more dangerous than the Arduans. Deep within the uncharted regions of the galaxy, on the fringes of known space, a dormant power began to stir. It was ancient beyond measure, a remnant of a time long forgotten. When the galaxy had been ruled by beings of unimaginable power, these beings had fallen into myth and legend, their civilizations crumbling to dust, leaving behind only echoes of their existence. But now, after eons of silence, those echoes had become a roar. The first signs were subtle, faint energy signatures detected by long-range probes, strange disturbances in the fabric of spacetime, and the sudden disappearance of entire star systems. At first, these anomalies were dismissed as natural phenomena, or the result of rogue factions experimenting with forbidden technologies. But as the incidents grew more frequent and more ominous, it became clear that something far more sinister was at play. On board the Solaris, Admiral Sarah Vance was deep in conversation with Dr. Emily Kane, one of the leading scientists studying the ancient fleet's technology. The briefing room was filled with holographic displays, showing data streams from across the galaxy. The atmosphere was tense, an undercurrent of unease that had been growing for weeks. "Admiral, the patterns are unmistakable," Dr. Kane said, her voice laced with urgency. "These disturbances are not random. They're following a trajectory, a path that leads straight to the heart of the galaxy. And based on our analysis, the energy signatures matched those found in the ancient fleet's databanks." Vance frowned, studying the holograms. "You're saying this could be related to the same civilization that built the ancient fleet?" Kane nodded. "It's possible, but the power levels we're seeing are far beyond anything the ancient fleet is capable of. If these readings are accurate, we're dealing with something on a scale we've never encountered before, something that could pose an existential threat to not just humanity, but the entire galaxy." The room fell silent as the weight of Kane's words sank in. The ancient fleet had been humanity's greatest discovery, but now it seemed that it had also awakened something far more dangerous. "We need to investigate this immediately," Vance said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "If there's a threat out there, we need to understand it before it's too late. Prepare the Solaris for a deep space mission. We'll need our best scientists and our most advanced ships for this." Kane hesitated. "Admiral, there's one more thing. The ancient fleet's databanks contain references to something called the Eternal Dawn. It's described as a weapon of unimaginable power, designed as a last resort by the ancient civilization. But the records are incomplete, and we don't know what it is or how it works." Vance's eyes narrowed. "The Eternal Dawn. If that weapon exists, and if it's as powerful as the databanks suggest, we need to find it before whatever is out there does." The decision was made. The Solaris would lead a task force into the unknown, following the trail of anomalies to their source. It was a journey into the darkest reaches of the galaxy, where few had ventured and even fewer had returned. But it was a journey that had to be taken. Humanity's future depended on it. The task force plunged into the depths of space, leaving the safety of charted territories behind. The stars grew sparse, the light dimming as they approached the galactic core, where the anomalies were strongest. The tension on board the Solaris was palpable, a mix of fear and determination driving the crew forward. Weeks passed in relative silence, the vastness of space pressing in on all sides. But as they neared the source of the disturbances, the silence was shattered. The ship's sensors picked up massive energy fluctuations, like nothing they had ever seen. It was as if space itself was being torn apart, a maelstrom of power that defied explanation. And then they saw it. A colossal structure, floating in the void, a construct so massive it dwarfed even the largest planets. It was ancient, covered in the scars of countless battles, its surface etched with symbols and patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. It was a relic from a time before time, a fortress built by a civilization that had mastered the very fabric of reality. "This is it," Vance whispered, her voice filled with awe and dread. "This is the source of the disturbances." Dr. Kane's voice crackled over the comms. "Admiral, I'm detecting a massive buildup of energy inside the structure. It's like nothing I've ever seen. This could be the eternal dawn." Before Vance could respond, the structure came to life. Beams of energy shot out in all directions, tearing through space with terrifying precision. The task force was caught in the crossfire, ships disintegrating in an instant as the ancient weapon unleashed its fury. "Evasive maneuvers," Vance shouted, gripping the armrest of her chair as the Solaris lurched to the side, narrowly avoiding a blast that could have destroyed the ship. "We need to find a way to shut that thing down." But even as the Solaris dodged and weaved through the onslaught, it became clear that they were outmatched. The ancient structure was operating on a level far beyond anything they had encountered, its technology so advanced that it seemed almost like magic. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the assault stopped. The structure's energy levels began to stabilize, and the beams of destruction faded away, leaving the Solaris and the few remaining ships of the task force drifting in the aftermath. "What just happened?" Vance asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Kane's response was slow, as if she was piecing together the answer as she spoke. It looks like the structure was responding to a threat, but now that we've backed off, it's going back to a dormant state. It's like it's guarding something." Vance's mind raced. The Eternal Dawn was not just a weapon. It was a guardian, a sentinel designed to protect something of immense value. But what? "There's only one way to find out," Vance said, her resolve hardening. "We need to get inside that structure and see what it's protecting. But we have to be careful. One wrong move, and it could destroy us all." The decision was made. A small team, including Vance and Kane, would board the structure and attempt to disable its defenses. It was a dangerous mission, but it was the only way to prevent the ancient weapon from falling into the wrong hands, or worse, from wiping out entire civilizations. The interior of the structure was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one filled with alien technology that defied understanding. The walls hummed with power, the air thick with an energy that seemed to pulse with life. It was a place of awe and terror, a tomb of a forgotten empire. As the team made their way deeper into the structure, they encountered strange devices and machines, some of which seemed to react to their presence. But there were no signs of life, no living beings, no automated defenses. It was as if the structure had been abandoned long ago, left to slumber until the time was right. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure, the vast chamber dominated by a massive control console. The console was covered in symbols and glyphs, glowing with a soft, pulsating light. "This must be it," Kane said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "The control center for the Eternal Dawn. If we can decipher the controls, we might be able to shut it down, or activate it." Vance nodded, stepping forward to study the console. The symbols were unfamiliar, but there was something about them that seemed almost intuitive, as if they were designed to be understood by anyone who found them. As she reached out to touch the console, the symbols flared to life, and the entire chamber began to vibrate with power. A holographic display appeared in the air before them, showing a map of the galaxy. At the center of the map was the structure, its energy levels rising. "This is it," Kane said, her voice filled with awe. "The Eternal Dawn. It's a weapon, but it's also a beacon. It's sending out a signal, one that could reach across the entire galaxy. Vance's heart pounded in her chest. We need to stop it. If that signal gets out, it could awaken other ancient weapons, ones that we can't control. But even as she spoke, the console's symbols began to shift, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. The chamber's vibrations intensified, and the map of the galaxy zoomed in on a single point, a star system on the edge of the galaxy, far from any known civilization. That's where the signal is being directed, Kane said, her voice barely a whisper. Something is out there, something powerful enough to be the focus of the Eternal Dawn's signal. Vance's mind raced. They had come to stop a weapon, but now they had found something far more dangerous. If the Eternal Dawn was reaching out to that star system, it could mean only one thing. The ancient threat was not just a relic of the past. It was still out there, waiting to be awakened. We need to shut this down. Now, Vance said, her voice filled with urgency, before it's too late. But even as they worked to disable the console, the structure's power levels continued to rise. The symbols on the console flashed faster and faster, the chamber's vibrations reaching a fever pitch. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the Eternal Dawn signal was sent out into the galaxy. Vance shielded her eyes as the light faded, the chamber falling silent once more. But the damage had been done. The signal was out, and there was no way to stop it. We need to get back to the Solaris, Vance said, her voice grim. We need to warn the galaxy. Whatever is out there, it's coming, and we're the only ones who can stop it. As they made their way back to the ship, the weight of their discovery pressed down on them. The ancient threat was real, and it was coming. But humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they would do so again. The fight for the galaxy was far from over. The galaxy was on high alert. The signal from the Eternal Dawn had been detected by every major power, and the news spread like wildfire. Across the stars, fleets were mobilized, defenses were strengthened, and alliances were forged. But even as the galaxy prepared for the worst, there was an undercurrent of fear. Fear that this time, even humanity's strength might not be enough. On board the Solaris, Admiral Vance was in constant communication with the leaders of the Galactic Council. The council chambers were filled with holograms of alien leaders, their faces a mix of determination and fear. "Admiral, do you have any idea what we're dealing with?" one of the council members asked, a tall, blue-skinned alien with multiple eyes. "The signal you detected. It's causing panic across the galaxy. We need answers." Vance took a deep breath. "We believe the signal is connected to an ancient threat, one that predates the rise of most of our civilizations. The structure we encountered was designed to protect something, but it also sent out a signal that could awaken other ancient weapons. We don't know exactly what's out there, but it's clear that it poses a threat to all of us." The council chambers erupted in a flurry of activity as the leaders debated their next move. Some called for immediate action, while others urged caution. But there was one thing they all agreed on. The threat was real, and it was coming. "We need to coordinate our efforts," Vance said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Humanity will lead the charge, but we can't do this alone. We need every available ship, every soldier, every resource. This isn't just humanity's fight. It's a fight for the survival of the entire galaxy." There was a moment of silence as the council members considered her words. Then, one by one, they nodded in agreement. "Very well," the blue-skinned alien said, his voice steady. "We will stand with you, Admiral. But know this, if we fail, it will be the end of everything we know." Vance nodded, her resolve unshaken. "Then we won't fail." The galaxy's response was swift and overwhelming. Fleets from every corner of the galaxy converged on the star system identified by the Eternal Dawn signal. It was a show of force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, an armada of ships, bristling with weapons, and filled with soldiers ready to fight to the last. But even as the fleets gathered, there was an uneasy calm before the storm. The star system was eerily quiet, with no signs of life or activity. The only thing that stood out was a massive, ominous structure orbiting the system's central star, a structure that bore a striking resemblance to the one the Solaris had encountered. Vance stood on the bridge of the Solaris, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen. "All ships, hold position," she ordered. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet." But as the fleets settled into formation, the structure began to activate. Beams of energy shot out from its surface, forming a massive swirling vortex in the center of the system. The vortex pulsed with power, growing larger and more unstable with each passing moment. "It's creating a wormhole," Dr. Kane said, her voice filled with awe and fear. "A wormhole that could lead anywhere, or bring something through." The realization hit Vance like a hammer. "All ships, prepare for combat. Whatever's coming through that wormhole, we need to be ready." The fleet sprang into action, forming defensive lines around the vortex. But even as they prepared for battle, the wormhole's energy levels continued to rise until they reached a critical point. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the wormhole stabilized, and something began to emerge. At first, it was just a shadow, a massive, hulking silhouette that defied comprehension. But as it fully emerged from the wormhole, the fleets got their first look at the ancient threat. It was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest dreadnoughts, its surface covered in jagged alien armor. It bristled with weapons, each one capable of annihilating entire planets. And it was not alone. Dozens of similar ships began to pour through the wormhole, each one more terrifying than the last. They were ancient war machines, designed for one purpose: to conquer and destroy. And they had just been awakened from their eons-long slumber. "All ships, open fire," Vance ordered, her voice filled with determination. "We can't let them through." The fleets unleashed their full firepower, beams of energy and volleys of missiles streaking across the void. But the ancient ships were prepared. They activated powerful energy shields, deflecting the attacks with ease. And then they returned fire. The battle was chaotic, a maelstrom of destruction and death. Ships on both sides were obliterated in the blink of an eye, their debris scattering across the battlefield. But even as the fleets fought with everything they had, it became clear that the ancient ships were far more advanced. Their weapons tore through the defenses like paper, their shields impervious to most attacks. But humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they were not about to give up now. "Focus all fire on the lead ship," Vance ordered, her voice unwavering. "We need to break through their defenses." The Solaris led the charge, its weapons blazing as it targeted the lead ship. The combined firepower of the fleet hammered the ancient ship's shields, weakening them with each hit. And then, finally, they broke through. The lead ship's shields collapsed, and the fleet's weapons tore into its armor, ripping it apart piece by piece. But even as the ship disintegrated, it unleashed one final devastating attack, a beam of energy that cut through the fleet like a scythe, destroying dozens of ships in an instant. But the sacrifice was not in vain. With the lead ship destroyed, the rest of the ancient fleet began to falter. Their formation broke, their attacks becoming less coordinated. The Allied fleet seized the opportunity, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. One by one, the ancient ships were destroyed, their hulking forms reduced to burning wreckage. But the cost was high. Many of the Allied ships had been lost, and the survivors were battered and bloodied. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last of the ancient ships was destroyed. The battlefield fell silent, the only sound the crackling of damaged systems and the distant hum of the wormhole. Vance let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with relief and exhaustion. "The threat is neutralized." But even as the words left her mouth, Dr. Kane's voice crackled over the comms, filled with alarm. "Admiral, the wormhole, it's destabilizing. We need to get out of here now." Vance's heart sank as she realized what was happening. The destruction of the ancient fleet had triggered a chain reaction, destabilizing the wormhole. If they didn't leave immediately, the entire system would be consumed. "All ships, retreat," she ordered, her voice filled with urgency. "Get out of the system before it's too late." The fleet scrambled to comply, engines flaring as they made for the edges of the system. But the wormhole was collapsing faster than they could move, the vortex growing more violent with each passing second. The Solaris was the last to leave, its engines straining as it pushed to escape the system. The wormhole's energy surged, reaching out to engulf the ship, but just as it seemed they would be swallowed by the void, the Solaris burst free, the wormhole collapsing in on itself in a blinding flash of light. The fleet had escaped, but the cost had been great. The Allied forces had been decimated, their numbers reduced to a fraction of what they had been. But the threat had been neutralized, and the galaxy was safe. For now. Vance stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. The ancient threat had been defeated, but the cost had been high. Humanity had once again proven its strength and resilience, but the galaxy would never be the same. As the Solaris and the surviving ships made their way back to Allied space, Vance couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers they couldn't even imagine. But as long as humanity stood strong, there was hope. The fight for the galaxy was far from over. The battle was over, but the scars it left on the galaxy were deep and lasting. The Allied fleets had suffered immense losses, and many star systems were in mourning for the lives lost in the desperate fight against the ancient threat. The Galactic Council convened once more, this time to assess the damage and to chart a course for the future. Admiral Vance stood before the council, her presence commanding even as exhaustion tugged at her. Holograms of the galaxy's leaders flickered around her, their expressions a mix of relief, grief, and determination. "The threat has been neutralized," Vance began, her voice steady. "But the cost was great. We lost many brave souls, and entire fleets have been decimated. But we stood together, and we prevailed. That is what we must remember." The council members nodded, their expressions somber. The blue-skinned alien from before spoke up, his voice resonating with authority. "Admiral, you and your people have shown incredible bravery and resilience. The galaxy owes humanity a debt of gratitude. But we must also look to the future. This ancient threat was unlike anything we've faced before. We need to be prepared for whatever else might be out there." Vance nodded in agreement. "I propose the formation of a new coalition, a united defense force composed of ships and soldiers from every corner of the galaxy. We can no longer afford to be divided by our differences. We must stand together if we are to survive." There was a murmur of agreement among the council members. The battle had proven that even the most advanced civilizations could be brought to the brink of destruction. The time for unity had come. The council voted unanimously to establish the Galactic Defense Coalition, a powerful new alliance dedicated to the protection of the galaxy. Humanity, having proven its strength and resilience, was given a central role in the coalition's leadership. The Solaris would serve as the flagship of this new fleet, a symbol of the unity and determination of the galaxy's species. As the council session came to a close, Vance allowed herself a moment of reflection. The battle had been won, but the galaxy was still a dangerous place. The ancient threat had been defeated, but there were undoubtedly more dangers lurking in the darkness of space. But humanity had once again proven its worth. They had stood at the edge of oblivion and emerged victorious. And now, with the support of the entire galaxy, they were stronger than ever. As the Solaris prepared to set out on its next mission, Vance looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and there were still many challenges to face. But as long as humanity continued to fight, to explore, and to push the boundaries of what was possible, there was hope. The ancient threat had been defeated, but the fight for the galaxy was far from over. And so, with the dawn of a new era of unity and cooperation, humanity and its allies set out to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defend the galaxy against any threat that might arise. The new dawn had arrived, and with it, the promise of a brighter future for all.